Welcome, welcome. Finally got him. Finally got him on an episode of Trevelyan Next. We got the one and only. Do you still go by Inked Banker, Corey, or is that still your
No,
name on Twitter?
yeah, still go by Ink Banker, man. Tattoos are permanent, so
Yeah.
I got to keep that
We
name.
got yeah. Welcome,
not
Corey
going away anytime
LeBlanc,
soon.
from my friend Corey LeBlanc from Locality Bank, co-founder, CTO, and COO of a bank that's been in the news a lot over the past few months. I'll let you kind of describe Locality, but we've known each other for a few years now, and Corey's always kind of my go-to for information on technology, what's happening in banking. Just an overall great guy. Saw him and his wife Cassie in Vegas, 2020, and I know you and Keith Costello have been working really, really hard, and it looks like it's finally paying off, man. So congratulations on that. But I'll throw it over to you to introduce kind of Locality, where you're at in the process, and kind of give us an overview of what's happening down in Florida.
Appreciate it, man. Good to be on the show, Keith. I know we've talked about doing this thing for a while, and I kind of pushed you back a few times saying, hey, let me get some runway behind me, right? Let me have some things that we might want to talk about. Not that we didn't have really cool conversations, there probably has been. But we're a really cool spot at Locality, right? We just launched back at the beginning of January, so January 12th, actually, we launched into production. So we're actually a bank now, which is really cool to say that we started a bank and we're actually fully regulated and
full charter and everything, right? That whole process.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. So you have no idea how much I love proving people wrong. Through hard work, right? So we were told from the very beginning that we said we would do it under a year and we'd do it for under $1 million, and we were told by everyone that wasn't possible with the way we wanted to do it, right? So what Locality is this? It's a community bank, right, down in South Florida, specifically Broward County, Miami-Dade counties, as well as Palm Beach counties. But the way we're doing this differently is we've brought this digital native concept, right? This more modernized bank operating system into play from the very beginning, right? Because, and me and you've talked about this a lot. If you're going to go do something and you can apply first principle concepts of how would we do this from the very beginning, then you do it, right? And so you're going to start a new bank. I mean, you never have a better greenfield than that. And so we did exactly that, right? We pulled in Nimbus and a few other partners specifically to start with a modern platform to continue to evolve, because our concept is that community banking is going away, or at least ceasing to exist how it used to. But there's still this definitive need in the markets for community banks to exist. They just need to exist in a different way. And the way the world has kind of shifted and changed, we feel like the digital native is a huge component, but also more importantly to that, right? We can talk about technology all day long, but the bank has to be able to be iterative, right? It has to be able to change and evolve with the customer's changes and complications or hurdles that they come about. I mean, the past 2 years have taught us that quite a bit, right? There's a lot of unpredictable things in a market, specifically local businesses and stuff, that is completely unpredictable. So we wanted to build it that way.
Yeah. Now, the word we're hearing on the talent side here at Trevelyan too, when we're working with some of our BaaS clients, innovative banks, is adaptive. I keep hearing adaptive talent, because even in risk and compliance, even in finance, you need somebody with that adaptive mindset, because things are changing so quickly. So building a bank kind of from scratch, right? Did you and Keith kind of just sit down with a whiteboard and just say, look, we start completely with nothing. Let's see how we can build this the way we want, to be flexible, adaptive with where the market's going to go over the next few years?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, whiteboards played a huge factor and still do, right? I love whiteboards. Some of my favorite things to sit down, and because I mean, you can hash so many things out with a team, right, to get on the same page. So there's two things I love: whiteboards and sharing books, right? You can get on the same wavelength with both of those things. But yeah, the way we looked at it, right, was obviously there's the marketing aspect of everyone talking about the modernization of banking and how do you compete with fintechs and how do you start to also compete with larger banks. But to be honest with you, we didn't really care as much about those things. We just knew that those things were necessary to be able to go build a bank. For us, again, I point back to, when we consider the impact of not having a community bank that, you can rely on in a local market, we also had to consider the fact that there's some expecting banking ethics, right, that also play a factor here. And as banks, we got to have consciousness about this, right, around banking practices and how they affect society or the local communities we look to serve. And to your point, right, they change. And so, I get that banks are for-profit companies. We're a for-profit company. However, we believe, right, that if we built the right platform and the right concept around helping the people we look to serve, that we can generate earnings without sacrificing these core principal values. And that's what we did, right? We sat down with the whiteboard and we said, okay, what's the problem that exists in the market, and what do local businesses struggle with, and how can we fill that gap? And how does a community bank factor in here? And then what do we need to have, from a technology standpoint, from a policy standpoint, from a procedural standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, to go solve for those problems efficiently.
So really looking at it from the customer's point of view, which is what all the great companies do, from Amazon to, whether it's Walmart or Netflix, the customer, and being able to adapt with the customer. Now, did you and Keith see a need for community bank products and service in that Florida area? Was there a lack? Was it just mostly big banks not really adapting to the needs of the smaller customers down there?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So if you looked at at Broward County, right, our main headquarter market down in South Florida, it had, I think, right about 10 plus regional and community banks about 10, 15 years ago. And then when we looked at it, when we started building this thing at late 2020, early 2021, there were 3. And there's like 2 now. Really only one. And so when we went out, because the reality is we didn't want to just go build another bank, right? We didn't want to just go build another fintech. We wanted to build something that created value. We started talking to investors and local business owners, and we said, hey, look, here's our concept. And one of the first questions that we got asked was, well, do we really need another bank? There's a lot of banks down here. And we said, well, look, how many community banks? So what was PPP like for you? What was the years before PPP like, before COVID happened? How did you run your business? And really quickly, we got the response back that, there's this missing element that we wish we had, but the community banks that have existed really don't serve our needs, of the future or again, as a present. And so that's where we started to really shape the business plan and how we wanted to do this thing. So it was me, Keith, and Drew as one of our other co-founders. It was really cool because Keith comes from a bank CEO, and he started other de novos, which coincidentally, the last de novo to launch in Broward County was Keith's bank in 2009.
We call him Mr. Florida.
The next one.
Yeah, we call him Mr. Florida here at Trevelyan.
And so you had him, and then obviously I come from a strong technology background, so I know how to orchestrate the things to get the tools to the people that need to serve the customer. And then Drew, our other co-founder, has been in South Florida, commercial market lending and relationship banking for a really long time. And so collectively, we were able to have some really interesting conversations with some amazing people down there to understand what locality should be.
Yeah. What was kind of, when you did your market research and you spoke with the local businesses and small businesses, what was missing from their banking experience? Was it the service? Was it kind of caring about our needs in a way specifically to Florida? What do you think you got feedback-wise?
Well, I think that 2 things, right? So in the conversations we had, we would start with 3 basic questions. The first question would be, who is your primary banking relationship? And we thought this would be a really easy answer for the customer, but it wasn't. What we found was that most of the people, like over 90% of the people we talked to, end up telling us they really didn't have a primary banking relationship, specifically around their entire finances, right? It was, my primary banking relationship for lending is so-and-so, or my primary banking relationship for point of sale is this other company. What we determined in talking to them though is this created a lot of complication and really difficulty for them to manage their businesses end to end, because we hear it all the time, businesses don't start to get into the world of banking, they start a business to do this thing that they're doing, right? And so when you consider that most of these businesses had 4 to 6 financial service relationships that they worked with on a daily basis almost to run their business, you realize that it was very difficult for them to basically aggregate all of this back to a central point and be able to really manage the business successfully, with the bank being the advisor. Some of these startups, even some of pre-revenue, were telling me that they were having to go hire fractional CFOs to manage the business, which was insane to me. And so, that was one. And then the other major question we asked them was, well, what about your banking relationships or your banking services today are you not happy with, right? Like, what is the thing that you just don't like? And what it came down to is there were so many there, it was so spread out that we really couldn't point to something specifically, but what we realized really fast is that they didn't know. They didn't know what they needed for the future. They just knew what their problems were that has already existed. But as banks, it's our job, right, to go out and start to help them be predictive in the way that these things are going to change, or at least provide the tools. And that's where this concept of us having to be iterative and responsive, but in a way that we can be efficient as a business, so we can maintain that balance, right, and be profitable as a company, but also still help the customers as we move forward. I've been saying this a lot lately. The Day version 1 product that we launched, I was really, really pleased with. The Day 90 product, I'm ecstatic about. But it's that Day 365, it's that year 2, it's that year 3 product that I'm freaking pumped about, man.
Yeah, I can tell, man. I can tell the enthusiasm. So right now, I mean, you guys launched. What type of products do you have now for the businesses down there? Can they bring all those relationships under one roof now, or do they still need to have those different relationships with their financial partners? The small businesses?
Yeah, so there's definitely, obviously, as a startup, there's a lot of things that we can and can't do out the gate, right? So it's hard to just go out there and say that we can do everything. And really it starts small and continues to grow. But what we knew we had to do is, because community banks it's not really a consensus definition of what a community bank is. Some will tell you it's a small bank, so under 10 billion in assets, and that's really kind of probably the worst way to describe a community bank. I think community bank is one that specifically serves the market in a unique way and understands the unique challenges of that market so that they can serve them. So what we did is we decided, okay, what's the minimum viable product that has to be on the market to serve what we consider local businesses, right? And so what we rolled out with was both consumer and commercial deposit accounts, both in basically a basic checking account as well as a money market account in both of those. On the commercial side, we'll be rolling out analysis checking as well as IOTA checking account here in the next couple weeks, so we can get those in the market. And then from a lending perspective, because one of the biggest problems we saw in our market analysis also was the fact that businesses, in order to grow, need to be able to have access to capital. There's a massive disconnect in the amount of run rate that a business has to be able to scale the business and the time that it takes them to get access to that capital from a bank or another institution. So we knew we had to have a pretty hardy lending product list, and so we're offering CRE, CNI, as well as SBA 7A, 504 loans. And a lot of people told us that we probably should have cut that list down a little bit, but we felt like that if we were going to really serve the market honestly, that we had to at least come out to swing in with those things. And then now it's up to us to continue to improve those processes and those systems to make sure that the customers' needs are met.
Yeah, and so important, I think, and we've talked about this before, is the partnerships with the fintechs that you're working with, whether it's Nymbus, could have loan fintechs, deposit fintechs. What's the important ingredient? Because I've been reading a lot about this. There's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, how fintech relationships maybe aren't what the bank expected, like they were expecting more incoming deposits. There has to be, it's a partnership. It's not a vendor. And I know I just watched the FedFis Cowboys, FinTech Cowboys, who we know very well. A couple weeks ago, we watched your video, and yeah, you were talking about partnerships and how strategic they are, and you're in it together. What are some banks missing, maybe, from your point of view, with these partnerships with fintechs?
Yeah. First and foremost, I said at the very beginning of this, like, I'm not signing a single vendor contract. Yeah. I will never sign a vendor contract. I'm only going to sign partner contracts, right? Mm-hmm. And what that means to me, and what I think banks misunderstand, is there's this, I guess, this understanding where if we're going to have this coexistent relationship, right, that I got to get more out of you than you get out of me, right? And that's success, right? Is mm-hmm. How do I show ROI? How to make all this money? I don't care how much you can make. I don't care how successful your company is. I want to talk about what I need day one, and that's flawed, right? Is for us, it comes down to this conversation where both companies have a mutually beneficial relationship where I understand your objectives as a company, and then you understand mm-hmm. my objectives. Especially, we need to be able to get to at least one common objective, but we also need to understand those ancillary, the smaller objectives as well that exist. And then we need to have a common understanding of how do we help each other achieve those, right? Mm-hmm. And so that, again, my success is not just tailored to how much I pay you, but it's also could be tailored to how much success your company can have as well. And so mm-hmm. when we're sitting there talking to a Nymbus or someone like that, the conversation is around how do we flush out, how do we prove the systems, how do we validate this end-to-end bank concept, how do we emerge into other markets like banking as a service and some of these other pieces that obviously are going to be mm-hmm. important moving forward. How can we help you do these things or prove them out or make them bigger at scale? And so for us, coming in from a commercial perspective, we brought a lot of understanding of complexity of commercial banking that a tech company never being a bank before would struggle to understand, right? And so mm-hmm. and then they obviously bring a lot of technology expertise, but there's also conversations that we have with early startups, fintechs, and the conversation around that is how do we get a true proof of concept out in the market? How do we start to, again, prove out your product or figure out what that appetite on the customer side, or how does this integrate with our systems? And so it's this working relationship, right? And mm-hmm. the problem is most banks or financial institutions, they have a really complex system that doesn't allow them to test or play or iterate. So one, it's hard for them to integrate something in there cost effectively. So everything's got to have this massive ROI. It's got to be a big project. Mm-hmm. And two, it also makes it really hard for them from a data perspective to point to the things that are those common objectives inside their organization. And so I tell people all the time, if you can't sit down amongst your team and point to one or two or three things that your company has to execute on in the next year to be successful moving forward, you're not ready to talk to half of these tech companies, right? The technology mm-hmm. is not going to help you. It's not a mobile app, right? It's actually it's how do you use these technologies to aid your business?
Exactly. No, that's a great answer, man. And that's how we feel at Trevillion. Our best clients, we feel like strategic partners with them. We are strategic partners. We'd rather do multiple searches with a CEO who really sees what we bring to the table than just flip resumes. It's not what we do. But so we can wrap this up. But question for you: is this scalable, where you can take what you've done at Locality and bring it to other markets, say like Nashville, Tennessee, or something like that, where it's different than Florida? But your kind of concept, whether it's white labeling or your technology, do you see that in the future where you can bring this kind of community feel where you're really digitally focused, but you're a community bank focused on that area and the issues of those clients? Do you think that's something that can happen going forward?
100%. Yeah, no, that's what's exciting about this is because there's two ways to look at this, right? There's this idea of scale, and we can scale Locality in the other markets, and we can continue to grow as a company. And I'm super excited about that. But there's also this other element, right, where we can collaborate and work with other financial institutions to help speed up their modernization and get community banking back on track where it needs to be. And so we're absolutely looking at that as we're building all these systems out, right? We're obviously selfishly looking at our systems and how we're going to continue to build the company today. But we're also looking at the possibility of being able to take that exact model, right, and replicate that in a really, really quick and easy way. There's another side note, right? There's about 3 or 4 other de novo banks that are trying to come up that I work with on a pretty consistent basis to share my thoughts, share, our experiences to help them get out the gate in a similar fashion. And so, yeah, we're absolutely looking at how do we not just build locality in southeastern Florida, but how do we start to make community banking local and focused in these unique needs and challenges that happen, but in a way that actually serves the customers in a meaningful way.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, we've talked about this many times, the importance of community banks that have been around. I'm working with a bank right now up in the Boston area that's been around since I think the early 1800s, and it's sad, I know, to see these banks kind of gobbled up by the regionals or the big guys, but at the same time, digital evolution is not something that's optional these days. And I feel like we're in like inning 1 or 2 of what's going to happen with digital evolution. We haven't even talked about, this is another chat for another day, whether it's blockchain or metaverse or artificial intelligence. The banks that are investing in that, and the banks that are able to be agile, as we said before, like Locality, it's going to be key, because if you sign these 5-10-year contracts with a vendor, how are you going to adapt when some new technology comes out that your customers want, or you want to gravitate towards? So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Another thing too, right, is when you look at these, we talk about relationships and contracts and partnerships and all this as well. And those 5 and 10-year contracts you're talking about, right, with these very, known companies, the biggest problem that I see with them isn't the technology. It's the way that the banks are dependent on these companies to do things with their technology that basically removes control from the institutions to essentially control their future destiny, right? So my version of my business is going to be dictated by, one of these other companies' roadmaps and not my own. And so that's where this more modern platform. So I'm an infrastructure architecture guy. I love mobile apps, but only if they're built on a really good platform, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to be able to say, hey, my company's going in this direction. If your company's not going in this direction, I'm going to go find someone who is, and we're going to build that in, right? And I want to be able to control and do that at my pace, my speed, my cost. And that's another huge part of these relationships is to have that understanding that maybe I'm dependent to you for about 90% of what I'm trying to do here today, but maybe in 3 years, I'm only dependent to you for 60%, but it's going to be a much more valuable 60%, right? And everyone's going to be happy about it, and everyone understands that's the path we're on.
Yeah. No, this is great, and we can definitely wrap this up, Corey. I'm so glad to finally have you on. I know we wanted to wait until you launched, and you had the website looks great. How's the response been down there in Florida? Are people excited to have another option, to come to? And you definitely know the businesses down there. So are you seeing a lot of enthusiasm around Locality?
Oh, definitely, man. So one of the things we did, right, we launched as friends and family, right? So we went into market, but we were very specific. Like, you couldn't just go online and open an account with us. You really still can't. Well, actually, there is a way to do it. If you go in online banking or mobile, you can just open an account from there. But there's not a real clear message on the website, right, for people just to go open an account. And we did that so we could be very strategic in the way that we rolled the thing out. But the list of customers on the backside of this thing requesting access to accounts, I mean, we have a list of over 300 people that were asking for bank accounts. How many de novos do you know open the doors of a physical brick and mortar location, have 300 customers waiting outside with their applications? Not very many, right?
No.
We have a really nice loan pipeline that, we're running at full speed to try to meet. These are good problems to have. And so it's been very well received. We just got to make sure that we continue to hit the marks to make sure that we're delivering the way that we've communicated it, and that, the thing that we're trying to do is ultimately valuable.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your family. I'm excited for Keith and the rest of the locality crew. See what this first year can bring, and I can tell, you're going to keep on building on this thing, and you're going to keep on making it better for the customer. And you have a great team in place down there. And I will make sure to visit your office every February for at least 3 weeks to get down there in the Florida sun.
Bring it on, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, bring it on, man.
You're definitely in the right place for
about South Florida, man.
Yeah, you're definitely in the right place for business growth, and it's fantastic
For
for the businesses down there to have a community bank feel, but a community bank that understands their needs and be able to adapt with their business too. So, congratulations on the charter. Congratulations on the launch. I see you hanging out with celebrities. Don't go Hollywood on us. Keep that keep that ink banker.
I'm too naturally introverted for that stuff, man. That's all good marketing and good strategy. We've had some amazing conversations with people, man. And for us, it's constantly trying to, and that's where the Nymbus partnership made a ton of sense for us. It's constantly trying to challenge the way we think about things, right? It's not just keep talking to bankers about banking, not just keep talking to fintechs about banking and fintech, but to have conversations with various industries, various players in the market to understand challenges and the way we seek to do things. We don't ever want to get comfortable, but so those conversations are a ton of fun. It's what do we learn from those that really matter, though, for me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and I'm glad I booked you now because I think next year you might be on CNBC with you might have your own booking agent. So I'm glad I got you before that.
With the workload we have right now, next year is just going to be just harder to get on the calendar, just with all the other stuff. Because I'm hoping we're doing some really amazing things by that time. So
that's great, man.
Hopefully I'm sitting down somewhere having a conversation with a tech company on how to do something no one's ever seen before. That's what I want to be. CNBC, all that stuff, I can give two craps about it.
That's just marketing. That's what your wife does, right? Marketing. Yeah.
It's necessary. It's fun, man. But I have so much more fun in front of that whiteboard, dude.
Yeah. Oh man, we just started whiteboarding. Got back into whiteboarding last week. It's fun. Kind of like, it's not going to go in that direction. And you come back, you look at it, you're like, what is this thing? Looks like the Green Bay Packers offensive package for week 16 or something. It's got lines going all over the place. It's fun. It's fun. Yeah. Well, we like to have fun. I know you like to have fun. We're focused on community banking and bringing the tech to community banking. So I feel like it's great to always have a chat with you and talk about what's coming down the road. But thank you again, Corey. Congratulations again on locality. And we'll have a conversation maybe later in the year and see where you guys are at. But look forward to seeing you again in person or have a chat in a few months. And have a wonderful March. We're into March. We're heading towards springtime. Thanks, buddy.
Into Q1, man. Into Q1. Appreciate it, brother.